David E. Chase, BCTV founder and board member, 1975-1981. An everlasting appreciation for his energy, dedication, and leadership in creating and helping to build BCTV. The board of directors hereby dedicate this plaque and studio. In 1983, just a couple of years after you left.
Yep.
Well, you said they built this elevator.
Well, since I've been here.
Like was it around the time when you were here?
I don't know when they did it. No.
Yeah, okay.
I'd gotten out of just about everything, so.
Okay.
I wasn't paying attention to what was going on down here in the building. I came in one day and I realized they'd taken the outside steps off and moved them inside and put the elevator in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I came to something to do with the Historical Society that time and found them upstairs.
Yeah.
That's when I realized things had changed.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we have our studio right here. Is this what era is this sign? Is this your era or is this after you?
I don't remember that.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if there's anything here that might still be from that time, but maybe some of our very old equipment. We have like a sort of a museum of sorts of old equipment in a couple of rooms down here. We also occupy 305 and 306 at the end of the hall here, but this is the studio as it stands currently.
Yeah.
So this is the same room that you used initially, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then here's Core.
Hey,
Hey.
hey, long time no see.
Yeah.
Hey.
You've got furniture.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we have beautiful desks, some chairs, and then back there we have the lumpiest couch you'll ever sit on in your life.
Is that the one with the paint can under the one we had on Brattleboro tonight? The chair had a broken leg, so they had a Sherwin-Williams paint can under the.
This one has a broken leg too.
Yeah. Things haven't changed too much.
Most of it, I just have the wrong logo here. That one's a bit old. Unless you want to use the old one.
Maybe not.
Right.
So the control room too. How is this all oriented and working?
They first started, they built something in this corner. They
Okay.
raised the floor so you could have cables under it and stuff. And sometime later, it was 2012, 2013, something like that, I came over and they had it on this end. But you had a bunch of new equipment and everything too, so
Yeah.
it was, I could still find my way around, but.
So you were kind of just working out of a corner here in the same room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I say they painted all black. I see you get the egg crates off the ceiling, but
Yep. This crazy looking.
so you can hang anything from that, right?
Oh yeah, no, this grid is great. We've been sort of moving around a lot of the lights that are up there recently, kind of reorienting things more in the center here. We were kind of working out of the corner for a while and it just felt like a little too claustrophobic in the corner. So we kind of moved it out to the center here and it's feeling bigger for sure right now. Yeah. Welcome to another edition of BCTV's Open Studio, where we highlight various community organizations, individuals, events, programs, things of that nature. Depends what's going on. My name is Johnny Gifford. I'm the Executive Director of BCTV, and today's guest is quite a special one, especially for us here at the station. This is one of Brattleboro Community Television's founders, David Chase. Hey, David.
Hi there.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
Well, yeah, I've got nothing else to do. I'm retired.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's been fun just like having you here today and showing you around a bit. You've been telling us a lot of stories, a lot of the history of sort of things here. From what I understand, this room that we're sitting in right now, this was BCTV for a while. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep. It was, it was unused. It was just used for storage. And in fact, I think the school department had a bunch of stuff in here. We had to move it across the hall. But yeah, there's nothing here. Nothing here. It's just cold and drafty and
Cold, dry. I mean, that hasn't changed a whole lot. But yeah, pretty much just like a camera or two, like maybe a desk, and then like in the corner you had like a switcher and a VCR. That was pretty much it.
yeah, you could hang meat in here.
Yeah.
It was not pleasant, but it's what we had.
Yeah.
They weren't charging us rent, so we got away with it for a while.
There you go. Yeah, it's a give and take.
Yeah.
I want to learn more sort of about the very inception of this organization that has blossomed to what it is today. I believe hearing in like 75 or 76, the town created like a committee that would investigate providing public access from
Well,
from what I've read? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I don't think the town did it.
Okay.
When I saw that article in the, I worked here for a while, and I used to pick up these magazines, these trade journals that come to small towns and stuff, and read them to see what was going on and just figure it out. And one of them had a little blurb at the end of one of the stories, a filler. And it was a story about the FCC requiring cable companies to provide a local access channel. And that's what started it. Because nobody would have known about it otherwise. And so I don't even know how that first group got together, but I got the word around somehow, and about half a dozen people showed up. And most of them didn't last very long, but I mean, at least there was an interest. And the ones that stuck, and then the others that came on later on, just kept building up. And I tried to build this relationship with the town, having it in this building, so they could keep an eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't upset them too much.
Clearly not, or else we wouldn't be in this building still today.
Yeah.
But what was that relationship like with the town in the beginning?
It wasn't bad. I mean, I was on the planning commission, so I wasn't, a foreigner. I mean, didn't come in from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might not have been quite so easy, for someone else. It's not that I had any particular clout, but at least I knew who I was.
Yeah. People see that you're not here to really gain anything out of it other than you're a local citizen and you want to take advantage of this thing that you saw in the magazine.
Yeah, and I think and at some level I just knew it was important to get it started, and I had no idea where it might go. I mean, I couldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just want to get people in there that between and among us making decisions. We could get the thing up enough so that people wanted it to be there. And I think it really came to fruition when we first got the selectmen on board, doing their meetings.
Mm-hmm.
We came in here and ran a cable downstairs through the ceiling, and they weren't too happy about that at first. It was a public meeting, and then once they started getting reaction from people, nobody's going to watch this. Who's going to watch a selectmen's meeting? Well, it turned out a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that they're talking about and doing that affect a lot of lives, and not everyone can make it down at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday or whatever.
The selectmen, after the first couple of meetings, people would stop them and say, "Oh, I saw you the other night, and I agree with you. It was a good idea." After that, they got upset when we weren't there.
And I feel like that's such a double-edged sword because it could have gone the other way. Like select board members being approached by people like, "Your policies are terrible. I hate you." Like,
well, vote them out.
Right.
How else do you know?
Yep.
So, but that was pretty good. And then, I think that was it. And they gave us the room because it wasn't being used for anything else. I think they had no idea where it was going to go, but I don't know why they let me do it. I really don't.
You film one select board meeting and then suddenly it's like there's a value that's put onto the service.
And originally, we ran all our books through the bookkeeper, and so they could see what was going on anytime they wanted, and pull the plug. I also set it up so they would appoint board members. We'd give them a list of people we wanted, and they would pick somebody to. So they had some control there as well. While I was involved with it, I don't think they ever did anything but rubber stamp, what we gave them for names.
Yeah. So what was BCTV at that time? I mean, I know that we weren't incorporated as like a domestic nonprofit until sometime in like the mid '80s. So like, what even was this organization?
Yeah, it was just a group. We finally came up with a name. I went to a lawyer friend of mine and asked him to see if he couldn't set up the nonprofit, and he did something. I don't know what he did, but he did that for nothing. I mean, these people are all doing it for nothing.
All volunteers. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, a friend of mine ran the electric line up, so you guys had enough power to run all the equipment. Well, we didn't have equipment, but we knew we would.
Yeah.
And or even electric heater if we needed it.
Of course.
But so there was that. I told you earlier about the phone company, getting the line up here, and they were putting a new phone line into the building, and I saw a ditch outside and asked about it, and they said, "Well, that's the phone company." So I called them up, see if we could snake a cable up through this tube they were going to put in the ground. He said, well, we can't share the tube, but we'll put another tube for you.
And was that for a phone line or was that for like a cable line?
For our cable line.
Yeah.
Separate one, yeah.
So they just had built out like the infrastructure, and then what you had like Warner or whatever the cable company was like actually put the line down.
Yeah. After they told us it was impossible.
Yeah. Well, you made it very possible, it sounds like.
Well, they said there's no way to get up there. And that's when I called the guy at the fire department who does the fire alarms, and he knows all about the poles and where space is and like that. So he went, and I spent about an hour and a half with him, and gave the route to the Warner guy. Said, here's your route. I got all cleared for you.
Yep. I guess backing up a little bit, like you start out by, getting together with a group of like-minded people who have interest in this thing. You have the town sort of aware of it, maybe, initially a bit skeptical or eventually supporting you. But then how do you like approach a cable company like, Warner and say like, hey, we are going to be the entity that provides this obligation you have. Like, how do you even approach them with that?
Well, the first time I did, I'm not sure they were aware of it, or the local guy may have not been in. I'm sure the suits somewhere did, but he wasn't in favor of it at all. And my strategy, and I don't know now whether this is a good one or not, but I had the local cable manager on the board, because I thought that way at least we'd be a team.
Yeah.
And he was not a good team member.
So he agreed to join, but what, did he cause riffraff or something?
Well, it was because he could stall things, or he could, throw roadblocks up, or just not agree, or, and he did a lot of that.
And I mean, this all stems from the fact that, they have to pay you X amount of their gross receipts.
Well, they didn't then.
They didn't then?
No, they said, well, okay, we'll set it up, we'll run the line, and they had to provide some basic equipment. And we got a camcorder and a tape deck.
Right, from them, right?
Yeah. And I don't think we got much else. Everything else we scavenged, whether it's lights we borrowed from theater companies or anything. Furniture, I mean, I told you about the couch we had with the paint can on the one leg,
Yeah.
But and it was what we had, a fake plant. And the only microphone we had was on a cord, and we taped it into this fake plant we had, so that we didn't have to hand it back and forth. That worked.
Yeah, make things look seamless.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So then I guess like moving forward from that, like obviously having a relationship with, a cable company is at times complicated, but what were they obligated to provide you at that time?
Well, according to them, they fulfilled their obligation.
Just by a line and a camcorder and a VCR, and they were done.
That was it, yeah. Do what you want with it. And then we finally had a chance to buy a couple of black and white cameras and a switcher from a techie guy who was never on the board, but he was involved because he was interested. And so then we had 3 cameras and a switcher. So it made it easier. It was all black and white. It was, and that, once we did that, then we could start producing programs.
Right.
Not have to run around with a camera. And I think somehow we got a second camera to go downstairs along with a porta pack. So we could set up 2 things. One was a steady camera that did the whole board, and the other one was focused on who was speaking. They could switch. I wasn't really involved with that. I knew it was happening, but I wasn't part of the programming or camera work or anything. I really wasn't interested in running a camera.
So what drew you to starting this then?
It's just the fact that I thought it was important, and I wanted the selectmen on television.
Yep.
And I wanted people to see what their selectmen were doing.
Yeah.
And they said, well, nobody's going to watch the selectmen's meeting, and yet they do.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really that, like, honestly, what is still a very key tenet of BCTV is like, transparency of the civic process.
Yeah.
Is what really drew you to it.
And then, then they know who they're voting for.
Yep. But then during your time, I'm sure it must have expanded beyond just that.
While they were doing town meetings, they did those. They cover parades. So you could do parades because you just run a cable out and cover the parade.
Yeah.
And we had a whole thing for Brattleboro Tonight. I had a whole thing about a parade. We never did do it. would have been too complicated.
What, like a talk show segment on a parade?
Well,
or?
I mean, the parade, they used to do the parade, the alumni parade or 4th of July parade.
Right.
And Larry Smith, who worked at the radio station, and Claire and Annette, who used to work at the radio station, would be on this porch next door. And they'd just talk about the parade on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, which is almost like fireworks or tap dancing, you know, I mean, it's, or a magician. You know?
Doesn't translate super well without a visual aid.
So, but they would talk about the parade. And so I just wanted this thing where they would be on the porch talking about the parade, and the street is empty. And she's just going on about, oh, you know, people just don't seem to be coming out for the parades anymore. And, you know, I don't know where the interest is gone.
And this was all a bit, right? Like
Yeah,
this
yeah. So here they are chattering away about nothing. And then the camera is aimed down the street. And up comes a police car up over the knoll down there where it goes down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, Reggie Belleville was the police chief, and he was always the one who led the parade. He waved, you know, and that was part of the parade. So there's going to be Reggie Belleville coming up the street, and all the lights flashing on his car, and behind him was Dick Perry. Now he was an old band leader and stuff from years and years and years, and he had a white uniform and a hat, and he played the trombone. And behind this police car was going to be Dick Perry playing the Washington Post March on a trombone. And that was the parade. You know, we'd had to shut the street down on Sunday morning or something to do that, you know. But,
Yeah. But that was all for a show that you started on BCTV.
Yeah.
Probably one of BCTV's first public programs, I would imagine, right?
with the Brattleboro Tonight stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that we never did to do it, but it's the kind of thing I think is funny as hell. So it makes no sense. I mean, I'd watch John Cleese talk about Monty Python, and he says some of the funniest bits are the ones that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah. I think that sort of ethos of absurdism lives on in the station today. Whether it's through our own sense of humor and the way we joke around, or like even some of our producers filming like the most random things, and we just like love it. We just think it's great. It's unique stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So then, were you ever involved at a time where this BCTV as an entity became like an organization to provide education about everything that works here, cameras, lighting, audio, and providing resources to folks too?
I know they were setting up some training stuff. I mean, I wasn't interested in it, so I didn't care. You know, they had people who came in who were pretty clever, but you know, it was all basic stuff. I mean, this came in after I was gone. I don't know how much was here when Cora came. Really, I mean, I don't know how much equipment she had.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I think a lot of the furniture, at least some of like the tables and stuff, have been here probably that entire time.
Yeah.
But what was that like training program that maybe was starting to develop?
I think they just came in and showed them how to use the cameras and the switcher and stuff.
So there's just more of like a concerted effort to sort of empower people who were interested, like how to do it, because it's the only way to keep it alive at that point. Everyone was a volunteer.
Because you got to find. I mean, you can't do this piece if you don't have that piece.
Right.
You know, so you have to have somebody who's really interested in learning how to do that.
Yeah.
And then you instruct them on how to do it.
Yep.
For your show.
Yeah. And it requires a lot of hands, I'm sure, you know, from moving from single camera, single VCR to then a 3-camera setup, and then eventually, I'm sure, more audio equipment and everything else. You just need more people who know what's going on.
Well, yeah, and an appreciation for all the time it takes before you even go on the air.
Exactly. Yeah. So how much did it grow? Like, was there a lot more people becoming involved by the time you were on your way out?
There were people who would show up. There were, you know, they'd show up and they'd be interested, and it was either too complicated for them, or they expected a lot of service from somebody instead of bringing in your own crew and going through that process.
Yeah.
I mean, that weeds out a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just come in and do your show.
Yeah. Exactly. You got to know what goes into it,
Right.
And put some work into it as well.
Right. And I don't think a lot of people really understood it. They wanted to, you know, but that weeds out people when they realize there's going to be an effort
Yeah.
and a learning curve, and it doesn't just happen.
exactly. And yeah, you really got to care about what you're doing to a certain degree to want to follow through with it.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you can't just like, spit out an idea and have it sort of formulate right in front of you.
Right.
It's not how it works. But yeah, and it's funny to hear you say of like, people not really understanding or getting it, because that's still something that we deal with today. And I get it. Like, we're not quite public TV like PBS. We're not quite, a commercial television station by any means. We're not quite a production facility in the way that, a lot of for-profit production facilities operate. We're sort of in this very strange in between.
Yeah.
And it's hard to convey that to people even in 2024, honestly. But what we're doing, I think, is still just as relevant as it ever was.
I mean, I was thinking I'd like to set up a little podcast kind of thing and just telling stories about people I'd met and stories and places I'd been and stuff like that, and they put it on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
And so I looking into editing software, Flixer or CapCut or,
Yep.
and I got so I could produce something, but I realized, it's not just sitting down and telling a story, it's spending 5 times more time editing it, getting it ready to go online.
Especially with podcasts, they're hard to edit because you can't see what you're editing. You have to really critically listen to it. That's a tough job.
Yeah. And I realized, I don't want to spend my life that way. So I moved over now. A friend is setting me up because she knows this stuff, and set me over to TikTok, which I can probably do pretty easily. But still, but I'm not going to be editing,
Yeah. There's a little bit of editing, I think, still involved with that, but I think they try to make that process easy for you, which is good. And I see people who are making things, just on YouTube. People are posting to YouTube constantly. TikTok, Instagram, those sorts of platforms. That's it's a similar ethos as to what the network that we're providing, the platform we're providing on public access.
Yeah.
And so YouTube is one of our biggest platforms now because that's so relevant to what we do.
Yeah.
But I think that's maybe a way to draw a connection to someone who's really active on YouTube and say, well, hey, there's this facility in your town that can give you all those resources and even a platform just by doing what you're doing now, sort of with additional resources and education. And did people really see it that way in the 1970s or in the 80s in that time?
I think it was all new enough that they didn't really have a sense.
Yeah.
I think we drew some theater people, perhaps.
Yeah, right.
In fact, there's one guy who did come in and somebody had written a play, and they did it here and out in the hall, and it was on, and he did a lot of editing later, but they had doors they could slam, so it looked like somebody come in and out, and it was kind of interesting. But the people who were, and he'd had some experience before. God, I can't remember the guy's name, but he'd had some experience with video production. So, and we had enough that he could do it, edit it and put it together. But
was he the host of a show, and then he also went and edited it?
I think they just did this play.
Okay. It was the same
play.
Yeah, it was the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I think, and then Guy McMillan started at Brattleboro Tonight. I talked about, and that was we did 20 half-hour shows, and that was unique. But it was, like I said, he was from radio.
Yeah.
So he knew how to do the interviews, and we'd find somebody to be the guests, give them the storyline. They didn't have to remember anything because he would ask them the question. They knew the story. So it went pretty well. Most of those guests were pretty good, and some of them had never done anything. Well, I don't know, but no.
Yeah, we still get people in here all the time like that are uneasy, but if you can kind of give them some direction and turn it into a conversation, it feels more natural for folks.
Yeah. One of the things I missed, and I think it would have been a good thing, but a woman called me up out of the blue, and she is somehow involved with the Women's Crisis Center. I don't know what they call it now, but and she had a tape she wanted to play, a commercial tape, another interview with somebody else, was about domestic violence and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Make people aware is all it was.
Yep.
And she turned out to be really quite a character. And so we did the tape and everything, and then when we were doing Brattleboro Tonight, we invited her back to be the French chef. You know, and she came back and tossed a salad, you know, all over the place. Anyway, I always thought that the Women's Crisis Center might be a great resource for people who wanted to get involved with this. You know, I mean.
Yeah. Looking for like a positive outlet coming out of like something so desperate.
Yeah, you know, maybe they've had their self-confidence beaten out of them, you know, but I mean, back here where you could be somebody and do something and have a result.
Yeah, be part of a team, you know, fill a role.
Yeah, and I never did follow up with that. I've always regretted that.
Well, I will say, you know, I think it might be the same organization, maybe it's not, but we have the Women's Freedom Center now, which serves.
Sounds like it, yeah.
It probably is, you know, a bit of a rebranding, but we do work with them regularly still, and we help get information about their programs out there and, you know, what they're providing. It's just great. They're celebrating, I think, 50 years this year, so it's probably, about lines up. And I had one of their advocates in the studio here, and I interviewed her for a while about history of everything there. But we're still working with them, absolutely. But I like your idea, and your idea is still relevant to 2024, I think. So I got some more people to follow up with, some more ideas, I think. Yeah. What was your largest challenge that you faced while you were here at BCTV?
Paying my bills at home.
That's so valid. Yeah.
You know, because I was just putting in a lot of time here. And I wasn't getting paid. No, that was it, I think. You know, a lot of resentment at home at the time it took.
Do you have any regrets in that?
No.
Way?
I mean, when I had enough, and I got out.
Yeah.
I just kind of eating you up.
Yeah, it takes a lot of bandwidth to do that for however many years you were.
Six,
yeah.
But they, and it was, just takes a lot of work.
It definitely does. Trust me, I know that.
And I had other stuff going on as well, so I mean, it wasn't just BCTV, but I mean, there's one more thing to unload.
Yep.
But, so I haven't really missed it. You know, once you get out of something, you can kind of write it off.
Yeah, I mean,
I always wanted to, know what was going on.
Yeah, of course, stay in the loop. But like, it must be a nice feeling to just like breathe.
Yeah.
You just get to breathe and like think about all the things that are no longer your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So I get that.
We were in California. Susan and I were in California, and I don't know whether I must have gone online to the Reformer to read the stories. And there's a whole thing about some flap with this, and got the police station involved. I don't know what was going on. I just know it was a mess. And I called
right after your time here.
Well, not right after, but it was some time after.
Yep.
And it was one of their awkward periods before CORE came. And I called up the selectman, Hugh Bronson, the chairman of the selectmen. I said, "What the hell is going on?" And he said, and he went on to his version of what was going on, which, he's talking about people I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they got it resolved because you guys are here.
Well, it's crazy how quickly, things change and change hands and leaders and faces at this organization after you were like, the impetus for it.
Yeah. Well, I knew something, if it continued, I knew it would evolve into something I didn't know what. I had no idea it would get like this. Of course, none of this technology existed either.
Of course, which totally changes the landscape of what you could have even anticipated at the time.
Yeah. I remember when they had the floods, the hurricane that came through, and they had all the floods here, and one of the kids went down and stood in the parking lot of waist deep in the water taking film. Then NBC bought the film.
Yeah.
I said, okay, they've arrived. I don't know if Cora was here then. I think she was.
Okay.
But I thought, okay, when the networks are buying your film.
Yeah. Was that like maybe Hurricane Irene era?
I think
2013,
Yeah,
about a little over.
He was down on Flat Street.
Yep. Wow.
So I thought, okay. I knew when that happened, I said, okay, they're all set.
Yeah, if BCTV is getting their films bought by ABC, then they must be doing something right. So yeah, I guess just like you've alluded to it a little bit, but what was life like after BCTV? You've kept in touch a little bit. You've moved around a little bit. Like, what else have you been up to?
Well, I think that was the time I went to work for the Vermont National Bank. I just had to do something, and I started out in the mailroom, and then I was a courier driving all over the state, and so I was out of town most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best parts was 9 hours I was out of town, out of touch, and my first wife couldn't reach me. So
she couldn't reach you if you were at BCTV. She couldn't reach you if you're on the road. Yeah.
And so, that eventually ended, and I married Susan. But, and then we went to California,
Mm-hmm.
and we were out in the wine country.
Nice.
In Sonoma County. We were there 6 years, and she had a job with a business consulting, coaching kind of outfit, and one of her clients wanted her to come to England and do it on-site. Well, they didn't. They do it all over the phone. But he's a salesman, of course, so he said, well, how about if you and your husband take a holiday, and I'll fly you over, and so he flew us over there, and we took an extra week and spent some time. At the end of the week, when she was with him, he invited us over. We flew over to England. At the end of the week, he asked her to come to work. And we talked about, well, what would we do? Maybe once a quarter, we'd fly over, and she'd spend a week, and and anyway, she said yes. That's the first I heard about it. We were about to fly home. And we went over there. We were over there 4.5 years.
So you lived there full time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Found us a house, a little village.
Yeah, nice.
So small, there wasn't even a pub. We had to go to the next village.
Wow.
But it was great. I mean, never made any money. It turned out she couldn't work for him. She quit after 6 months. So we said, well, what now? And we went to their equivalent of legal aid. And the guy said, well, you've already been vetted by the Home Office. All you got to do is find another sponsor.
Right.
And so she did that. And we got by. But when we came home, we didn't have anything. We took a chance, but we got 4.5 years in England.
And then you eventually moved back to the area. I mean, you live nearby now, right?
Yeah, I live in Keene. We came back. We knew it was going to be this coast, not West Coast, and we came. Actually, the first winter we were back, we went to Maryland and stayed with Susan's cousin, and we came up weekends and just looking around, and we found a place in Keene. It was a toss-up between Brattleboro and Keene.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Keene's fine. I'd much rather say I lived in Vermont, but
Yeah. You're so close.
Yep, close enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's been a good time.
It sounds like you've been keeping up with the Reformer the whole time too.
Yeah, when I can.
Yeah.
And I, check the Commons, and read the obituaries, and
Yeah.
see who's still around.
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of the people who were involved with this are now gone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they are, or I can't get hold of them. Don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Ira Wilner is the only one that I know that's still alive.
Yeah, and he's still kicking. Yeah, he's helps at the community radio station with various things. Yeah.
So, we've had a good time. And then I heard about you, so I called you up.
And now here we are. Look at us. Yeah. Bookends on a sort of thing,
I just think it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we could have shown you around, sort of where we're at today. And I love hearing about, what things were like, because it's just so starkly different. I don't think it could be more different, honestly.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, given that we're operating in the same space in a similar capacity, the amount that's changed is just incredible. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Networking all over the county. And it's no, we never saw that coming.
Did you ever have the cable signal go out to other towns in the area, or was it just in Brattleboro?
We were lucky to get into a school.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for people watching at home,
Yeah, I think the first time we got into a school was a high school, so we did the town meeting.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't know how they got it in the other ones, because the school board kept moving around.
Yeah. And I mean, now we can broadcast from anywhere we want, basically, but we're still sort of bound to our service area being based on who receives BCTV at home on their cable line.
Right.
So is it like just people in Brattleboro that were receiving it at home at that time?
I think so, yes,
yeah,
yeah.
which would make sense. But I mean, now we have 8 towns in our service area now, so we're working our way up, trying to serve our county best we can.
That's it. You had Jamaica?
Yep, yeah, we go all the way up to Jamaica now.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if you look at the map, it's like pretty much along Route 30, at least for a lot of those like westerly towns. And that's because that's exactly where the cable lines run, is all up Route 30.
Yeah.
So those are the towns that we service as a result. Yeah.
No, I just think it's incredible, the fact that it even works.
I know. It takes a lot of very specific circumstances to get it all together initially and to keep it working, a lot of volunteer time and a lot of people that probably don't have the bandwidth to do it. But, we've evolved past that now. And so we just really had to get over growing pains to get to where we are now. So just, again, thank you for helping us get there.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah. And you didn't even have anyone to like as a reference when you were starting this thing, right? BCTV was the first public access center in Vermont.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. And Burlington was not too long after, but Brattleboro was the first.
I remember the time when Jan Backus was here, and she was the station manager. And even then, she said we were doing more local programming, creating more local programming than Vermont TV, the public access channel, the state channel.
Yeah, like the PBS or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were producing more programming than they were.
That's impressive for a single town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, stuff that people just came in and wanted to do.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Yep.
Yeah, a little spark of inspiration and a little bit of motivation.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, here's to just about 50 years of BCTV and, to 50 more.
Yep. Well, hope I'm alive to come to the party.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on BCTV's Open Studio today, David. Appreciate the conversation. And thank you for tuning in to another edition of BCTV's Open Studio. Stick with us. Check out our website, brattleboro.tv.org, to stay up to date with all of our new videos and upcoming live streams and things of that nature. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of our community. Take care. It's like a lot of like power imbalance, I think.
Yeah. They got the police involved at one point. I remember there was one guy when I was still here, and he wanted a show of his own. He played a guitar and he'd sing, and then he'd talk about stuff, and he'd been doing that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then one of the people on the board who had a bunch of microphone stands and stuff and electronic kind of gear, he was watching a show one night, and he saw his microphone stands that had been stolen.
Oh my goodness.
So
Man, they were really desperate, weren't they?
So anyway, the guy had to go to the police, and they get that all straightened out. But I said, we ought to, just take a camera and just pan around the studio and say, if you recognize anything, it's yours. Give us a call. Come on in.